1. Divide by 5. Now, could you square both sides first? Yes, but if you're going to square both sides, you would have to square the 5 because it's in the front. So it's easier to just cancel it out right off the bat. So we're going to divide by 5. Okay, 10 divided by 5 gives me a 2. Then from there, that's a square root. To get rid of a square root, we do what? Square, right? 2 squared gives me how many? 2 squared is 4. Then to get rid of the plus 3, we're going to minus 3 minus 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, look at the question down here. Do you need to check for an extraneous solution if it's a square root? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to put yes because it's a square root. So then I would do 5 square root, 1 plus 3, does it equal 10? Okay, well in here, let's just do it by hand. What's 1 plus 3 in there? What's the square root of 4? Is 5 times 2 really 10? Yes. Okay, so if it's a square root, you have to check. Okay, look at the next one. What do I do first? Number 2, what do I do first? Divide by 3, good. What's negative 3 divided by 3? Okay, great, negative 1. 2c minus 7 inside. Okay, then from here, to get rid of the cubic root, I have to do what? Cube. And when you cube a negative, make sure to use parentheses. Okay, the same for all of the other types. Okay, so that's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 again. What do we get? Negative 1. Or you can just do in the calculator negative 1 up to the 3. Okay? From here you'd add your 7 across. Negative 1 plus 7 gives me 6. And if 2c is 6, I divide by 2. What's my c? 3. Okay, do you have to check for an extraneous solution if it's a cubic? No. So, no ES's for cubics. Okay, you're off the hook to check on the cubics unless you just really want to. Now, since we're reviewing and testing this week, okay, how do you get the cubic root in the calculator if you did want to check it? Math what? 4. Okay, so I'm going to put right here, math 4. Okay, that's how you would check it if you did need to do it. Okay, last one, this is the new thing we covered yesterday. What would my first step be? Okay, plus the 13. What is negative 16 plus 13? Okay, so I have 4th root 4x negative 3. That's correct. Then to get rid of a square root, you square both sides. Cube root, you cube both sides. What about a 4th root? You 4th power both sides. And if you have a negative base, you have to use those parentheses. So I'm going to 4th it here, and I'm going to 4th it here. Now, if you type these into your calculator, you'll notice that the parentheses really only matter if it's an even power. So like for this one, if you forgot the parentheses, it wouldn't matter. Okay, but I would say as a rule, just always put them so you don't mess up. So if I do negative 3 up to the 4, just like that, okay, I get 81. But notice that it's a positive 81. Okay, then last step, divide by 4. 81 divided by 4 is 20.25, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. But if you like the decimal better, that's fine. Good morning. Okay, from here, do you have to check if it's a 4th root? Yes. Remember, cubics or odd roots are the only ones that you're off the hook for. So I'm going to do 4th root 4, and then when I get to my x, I'm going to put in 81 divided by 4. Okay? Then I need to put a minus 13 outside of the house, and a negative 16 there. Okay, do we remember how to pull up the fourth root in the calculator? Okay, if you don't remember, look at mine. You're going to type in 4 first. Okay, 4 first, and then you're going to push math 5. I'm trying to see where y'all can see that best. So look, watch. I go to math, go down to the 5th option, and it'll pop the x into that little root spot. Okay? And then I'll do 4 parentheses, 81 over 4. Make sure you get out of the house to put the minus 13. I want it to equal negative 16. It comes out to equal negative 10. So is that a true solution or an extraneous solution? Extraneous. Okay. So this is 10 equals negative 16. Nope. Extraneous. Now, if you would like to abbreviate that ES, that's fine. You need a pencil? I don't have a pencil, but I'll give you a pen. Okay, so the only real new thing that we're doing today is we're just going to do these as word problems. Okay, a lot of them are very sciencey when you read them, but all that you're doing is solving these. You're just going to have a bunch of decimals. Okay, so look at number 4. Okay, it says, the cost to frame a piece of artwork depends on the size of the work being framed and includes a labor charge. Art Gallery uses the function C of A equals 0.5 square root A plus 6.2 to determine the cost C in dollars to frame a picture with an area A square inches. Okay, bunch of crap. You just need to know, what do the letters stand for? C is the cost, and what does A stand for? A is the square inches of the area. So the other thing I would recommend is that this right here, the C of A, that's called function notation. I would just replace it with a C. Okay, technically what that means is the cost for a certain A, but to make it easier when you're solving, I would just turn that into C equals instead of keeping the A, because sometimes that confuses people. Okay, then 0.5 A plus 6.2. To me, that looks easier for me to plug into. Okay, now, for each question on your homework, you're either plugging in for one letter or the other. So look at the part A. Find the total cost for a picture with an area of 192. What am I plugging in 192 for? C or A? A. So all that you would have to do is plug in for A and then find C. Okay, now, when I plug that in, look what I have. C equals 0.5 square root, and then my A is a 192 plus 6.2. Do I really even have to solve this? Really, all you have to do is type it in, right? Because the C is already on its own side. So type that in, 0.5 square root, 192 on the inside, plus 6.2. Okay, I got 7.03. What did I do wrong? The 6.2 is where? In the house it's not supposed to be. So excuse me, make sure when you type it in, you have to get out of the house or it's going to give you the wrong answer. So 0.5 square root 192 plus 6.2, correct answer is 13.12. Now, since this is dollars, if that's 12.8, how many cents does that round up to? 13 cents. So it'd be $13.13. Oh, wait, hold on. 13 cents, sorry. We do. I'll give it to you in a second. Okay, look at letter B. It says, find the size of a picture that would cost $20. Where do I plug in 20? For C, because it's a cost. So I come back to my original equation up here, but instead of plugging into the A spot, I'm going to plug into the C spot this time. So I'd put 20 equals 0.5 root A plus 6.2. Now, the first thing that I'm always going to do for these is if I have an unknown, I'm going to switch the sides. So I'm going to bring this side over here, and I'm going to bring the 20 to the other side. That's optional. If you can solve it with A on the right, that's totally fine. Okay, so I have 0.5 root A plus 6.2 equals 20. This is the same crap we've been doing, it's just got decimals in it. Okay, so what would I do first? Subtract the 6.2. Very good. So minus 6.2 minus 6.2. 20 minus 6.2 gives you how many left over? Okay. 0.5 square root a equals 13.8. What's my next step? Do I want to square right now? Not yet. Do what first? Divide by 0.5. Now, when you divide by a decimal, your number's going to get bigger. So don't let that seem weird to you. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to write over here, I have square root a equals 27.6, you said? Okay, and then what would I do from there? Square. So if it's a square root, I want a square to get rid of it. So then I'd have a equals whatever 27.6 is when I square it. Okay, which comes out to be 761.76. Okay, and then since that's area, that would be square inches. Okay, or was it inches? Yeah, so inches squared. Okay, come down to the next one. Okay, the number of eggs sold in a supermarket each day can be modeled by, boom, you have an equation. Okay, then it says x is the number of days, so I'm going to put x days next to each other. And then it says since the beginning of the month. Okay, and then y must stand for, what could y stand for? What does it say the equation is modeling? The number of what? The number of eggs, that's my y. Okay, so really, once you find out which letter's which, it's easy from there. You're just plugging into one or the other. Okay, so look at the first one. It says, on what day will 9,000 eggs be sold? Is that an X or a Y? That's a Y. So I'm going to take my 9,000, I'm going to plug it in here where my Y is. Okay, so I'll put a Y next to that. So I have 9,000 equals, and then I just keep my equation here, 4,500. 0.5x plus 2. Okay? First thing I'm going to do is flip it around. Maybe next time I'll just remember to write it like that off the bat. Okay, 4,500, 0.5x plus 2, 9,000. Okay, what would I do first to solve that? Yep, divide by the number in the front. Remember, you don't want to leave that there, or else you have to square it when you square both sides. Okay, 4,500 divided into 9,000, what do we get? Okay, 2 is correct. Okay, what do I do next after that? Can I subtract the 2 in here to get rid of it? No, what do I have to do first? Okay, square, square. 2 squared gives me how many over here? 4. And then this is a 0.5x plus 2 left over on the inside. What's my next step? Subtract the 2. 4 minus 2 gives me 2 left over. Last step, 0.5, divide on both sides. And remember, when you divide by a decimal, it's going to make that number bigger. 2 divided by 0.5 gives me 4, and that would be 4 days. Okay, because remember, that's what X stands for, is the number of days. Okay, look at part B. How many eggs were sold January 10th? Okay, well, how many days is that after the beginning of the month? That's day what? Day 10. And what am I going to plug it in for, X or Y? X. So I'd have Y equals 4,500 square root 0.5. And then when I get to my X, I'm going to plug in a 10 plus 2. Okay? And notice that usually one option you're actually having to solve versus the other option you're just typing it in. Boom, you have your answer. Okay, so for this one, I'd have 4,500 square root 0.5, 10 plugged in plus 2. And you can literally type it in just like you have it written on your paper. Okay, there'd be 11,905 eggs. Okay, 11,900. And actually, if it's 5.8, let's just round that up since we're talking about eggs. Okay, versus if it were money, you could kind of leave it as a decimal, but part of an egg doesn't make sense. Okay, turn the page. A couple more left on the back, and then we are done. Okay, next one. Okay, it says the wind velocity in meters per second can be described via P equals blah, 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 where P is the air pressure in millibars. Okay, so let's circle. Actually, I'm going to write that over here to the side. So V is velocity. And then it said that P is the air pressure. Okay? And if the words were right next to each other, I'd just circle it, but they're not. Okay, now then remember, this is what I would do. When you see this V of P, I would just make it only a V. So this is really just V equals 5.7. Now, what kind of root is that this time? A cubic root. 998 minus P. Okay, look at the first question. It says, what is the air pressure of a thunderstorm in which the wind velocity is 49.3? Where are we plugging in 49.3? For V. So I'm going to put that number here, and then I'm going to solve. So it'd be 49.3 equals 5.7 cubic root 998 minus P. Okay, what would step 1 be? What would I have to do first? Okay, so let's actually flip this around. Okay, so that it'll make the first step more obvious. Okay, does the 49 need to move? What do we need to cancel out? The 5.7. Okay, so that's why I would always move that X or whatever your letter is you're solving for to the left side. So I'm going to divide by 5.7. Okay, what is 49.3 divided by 5.7? We're just going to keep one decimal place. So what do we get? Okay, good. Now the next digit's a 4, so I would leave it as an 8.6. So these cross out. I have cubic root 998 minus P equals 8.6. Okay, what's my next step? Remember, if it was a square root, I would square, but it's a cubic root, so I have to cube. And remember that if it's a positive base, you don't really need the parentheses. You can put them, but you don't have to. So 8.6 up to the power of 3. Type it in just like that. That's going to cross this crap out. Okay, very good. We get 636. 998 minus P equals 636. Okay, and we'll just leave it as a whole number since it's a 0 after that. Okay, what do I do next? Okay, I don't want to move the P, I want to move the 998. How would I get rid of the 998 if it's a positive? Okay, minus 998. The 998's cross out. What is 636 minus 998? Okay, so negative P equals negative 362. And then it's weird it came out negative, but remember your P is negative 2. So if I have a negative in the front, I can just divide by negative 1 on both sides. And then what's going to happen with those negatives? Okay, here they're going to cross out with each other. And here they're going to cross out with each other. So my pressure, my air pressure, is going to be 362. And then it says it's measured in millibars. I don't even know what that is, but we'll just pretend. Okay? So it'd be 362 millibars. Okay? Alright, let's just do part B of number 7. So read through it. We're only going to do part B since we kind of scribbled all over it. Okay, so it says the number of bacteria in a swimming pool after disinfection can be modeled by this equation where X is the number of minutes. Okay, so Y is the number of bacteria and X is the number of minutes after they disinfected the pool. Okay, it says how many minutes would it take for there to be 3,000? So where are we plugging in 3,000 bacteria? For X or Y? Y. So you'd have 3,000 equals negative 5500 0.025x minus 0.2. What would your first step be? Actually, before I ask your first step, let's switch it around. So, to be kind of lazy, look, I'm just going to do this. I don't want to rewrite it. 3,000. Okay? That way we don't have to write the long side. What do I do first? There are two things we have to get rid of. Which one goes first? The number in the front? The minus 0.2. So remember, you always want to do your add, subtract numbers first. So if this minus, oh wait, hold on. It actually should be, do you see this here? It should be inside the house. So now that it's inside of the house, I can't do that first. But I wrote it wrong. Okay, so we're going to divide by negative 5500. Then I have square root 0.025x minus 0.2 equals 3,000 divided by negative 5500 is negative 0.54. We'll round that up to 55. Okay? From here, what's my next step? To get rid of the square root. Square. And when you square a negative, you have to put those parentheses or it's going to come out to be wrong. So negative 0.5 in parentheses, negative 0.55, and then squared. Okay, just like that in your calculator. Negative 0.55 squared is 0.30. We're just going to leave it as 0.3. Okay, so these guys cross out. 0.025x minus 0.2 equals 0.3. Okay, what's my next step? Add the 0.2. What is 0.3 plus 0.2? How much would that be? 0.5. And then what do I do with the number in front of the x as my very last step? Divide. 0.025, 0.025. Okay, and remember, when you divide by decimal, it should make the number bigger. So you should get a bigger number. Okay, I got a whole number. What'd you get? 20. And then remember that x is the number of minutes, so it would be 20 minutes as your answer. Okay? Okay, last one. How many letters do you see in your equation this time? Count. All the other ones have only had 2. How many letters in number 8? 3. What are my letters? S, F, and D. Okay, so let's write what each one stands for. Okay, S, it says, is used to determine the speed, okay, in miles per hour that a car is traveling, given the coefficient of friction, okay, that's going to be my friction, and the distance in feet that it takes for a car to skid to a stop. So we'll put distance to stop. Okay, so kind of weird that we have 3 letters, but we're going to read through it and make sure we plug in. Now listen, if you have 3 letters, they have to tell you 2 of them for you to find the other one. So if there's only 2 letters, they only have to tell you 1. But if there are 3 letters, they have to tell you 2. Okay, so it says, Ashley's traveling along a neighborhood alley with a speed limit of 10 miles per hour. A dog runs directly in her path, about 6 feet ahead of her. Road conditions are good, so the coefficient of friction is 0.09. If she's traveling the speed limit, will she hit the dog? Okay, so what 2 letters did they give you? Okay, her speed is 10 miles per hour. And they gave you the friction is 0.09. Now, the reason we don't want to put the distance is because we're trying to figure out if she has enough distance to not hit the dog. Okay, so the dog is 6 feet ahead, but we're not going to use that right now. Okay, so let's go to our equation. So S equals 300 FD. Let's plug in the stuff that we know. Our speed is 10 miles per hour. 300. Our 0.09 is our friction. And then our distance we want to know. Does she have enough space to stop or not? Okay, so there's two things that I'm going to do before I start here. The first thing I'm going to do is switch it around. So I'm going to put the 10 on this side, and I'm going to put the 300 times 0.09 D on this side. And then the second thing that I'm going to do is if the 300 and the 0.09 are right next to each other, I'm just going to combine them to just be one number instead of keeping them separate. So in your calculator, do 300 times 0.09, and let's just combine that into one number instead of two separate numbers. How much does that come out to be? 27D. Okay, and now from here we can just solve it. So square both sides. 10 squared is how much? Okay, 27D equals 100. Last step, 100 divided by 27. What's her stopping distance going to be if she's going the speed limit? 3.7 feet. Now, how far away is the dog? 6 feet. So is she going to have enough space to stop without hitting the dog? Okay, yay, the dog lives. Yes, enough space. Okay? Now, the next one says, what if she was going 5 miles per hour above the speed limit? Well, then what would her speed be there? If she's going 5 miles above the speed limit, her speed is what? 15. And then you would resolve the question. Now, sad news, okay, the dog dies if she goes that fast. Okay, so you can solve it if you want to, but poor dog is dead. Okay, so don't speed in the alley. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to give you your homework. It is 5 questions, but each of them have 2 parts. Okay, and then if you want your review early, it probably won't take you the whole period to solve this if you know what you're doing. Then I'll put it over on the table. But we're reviewing the next 2 days, so don't do all of it for homework. I'm not going to do. Okay? Okay, glancing at this, we didn't do a fraction one. Do we want to do one of them to make sure you know how to do it? Okay, 2 or 3, you pick. 2, okay? So read through it and figure out which letter is which. We have a T, we have a D. Okay, so the time it takes an object to fall, T seconds. So T is my time. Is modeled by the equation blah 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 where D is the distance. Okay, so we have our letters. Okay, then part A says determine the time it would take the stone to fall a distance of 10 feet. Where are we plugging, or I'm sorry, 70 feet. Where are we plugging that in? For distance, very good. So I'd put T equals big square root, and then my distance is going to be 70 over 16. Okay, is that a solve or a plug it in? You can just plug it in. So type it into your calculator. That'll tell you your T. And remember, you don't need a fancy fraction bar for that. You can just type it in like this. Okay, 70 divided by 16. That's good enough. Okay, square root comes out to be 2.09. Okay, and that'd be in seconds. Okay, look at part B. Find how deep the mine is if a stone is dropped into the mine and it hits the bottom 3.5 seconds later. Did they give you a time or distance? Okay, 3.5 seconds, that's a time. So you would put 3.5 in for this letter this time. So it'd be 3.5 equals D over 16. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is flip it around so that my letter is on the left side. So now it's square root D over 16 equals 3.5. Okay, because this 16 is inside the square root, I can't touch it first. What do I have to do first? Square. So I'd square, square. Find out what 3.5 squared is. Okay, great. And then if you have d over 16, that's d divided by 16. So how are we going to get rid of that? If it said divide by 16, multiply by 16. So you'll times by 16 here, and you'll times by 16 here. And then that'll cross these out, and then your d will be alone. So 12.25 times 16 gives us 196. Oops. 196. And then we were finding how deep it is, so that would be feet. That's how far the stone would have had to fall for it to take that long. Okay? Alright, so you have the rest of the class to finish. We'll review the next 2 days. If you haven't already told your parents, remember tomorrow's early release. So, you guys get out at 2. Okay? And then if you have any homework, I'll take that when you finish it. Perfect, thank you. Y'all have like 20 minutes.